Fuel tonight for Alex Murdaugh's defense attorneys as they appeal Murdaugh's convictions in the murders of his wife and son. Their argument revolves around alleged jury tampering by clerk of the court Rebecca Hill. And we know that Hill is featured in the just-released second season of the Netflix docuseries on the Murdaugh family. In the series, she even talks about how she thought the jury would return a quick verdict against Murdaugh.
I had a feeling from our time together with the jury out at Moselle that it was not going to take our jury long to make the decision in this case. It's just called that women's intuition.
Women's intuition, or was she tampering with the jury, as Murdaugh's defense suggests? Because we know 2 weeks ago, Murdaugh's attorneys filed a motion for a new trial claiming that Hill even advised the jury not to believe Murdaugh's testimony and other evidence from the defense.
I can assure you, when we considered what factors and what we should and should not do and considered whether he should take the stand, we never considered the likelihood, as reported to us by the jurors, that the clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language.
Now, I have to be very clear about this. These are very serious allegations. Jurors aren't supposed to talk about the case with each other before deliberations, much less with the court clerk. Murdaugh is currently serving 2 consecutive life sentences without parole after the jury found him guilty in the fatal shootings of his wife Maggie and their youngest son Paul at the family's estate in 2021. Hill landed a book deal from the case and even went on a book tour of sorts last month. At the end of the Netflix documentary, Hill saying she knew Murdaugh was guilty and suggests he may have had help, possibly setting up another season, maybe another book.
I do think Alec pulled the trigger. And then I think he had help with cleaning up everything that needed cleaning up. And what we had left was the crime scene that took us to the trial.
Well, Murdaugh is expected back in court tomorrow, where he'll plead guilty to more than 24 federal financial crimes charges spanning more than a decade. It's all part of a plea deal that he signed on Monday. All right, joining me right now, Angenette Levy, correspondent and host for the Law and Crime Network, who's in court covering the Murdaugh trial, my co-host on the Sidebar podcast. A little shameless plug, never hurt anybody. All right, so Angenette, you surprised to see Rebecca Hill took part in this Netflix documentary?
Hi, Jesse. I am not surprised one bit because she also took part in the Fox Nation documentary that came out in August, just a few weeks ago. So she was interviewed for that. She's done the book. Now she's appearing in this documentary. She was doing interviews for her book that she wrote right after the trial. So I'm not shocked by this in the least. I am surprised that she's opining on her feelings about Alex Murdaugh's guilt, given the fact that she's an elected official, she's an officer of the court, and he is still appealing that conviction, as you mentioned. So that's a little bit surprising to me, but the book was surprising as well. The fact that she was still in office and writing a book about a case that had just ended. Usually you would see somebody do that years and years down the road, not while they're still in an elected office.
It kind of gives weight to what Murdaugh's team is saying, that she was acting improperly. You think her appearance on the docuseries is going to help Murdaugh's case for a new trial, is going to help his appeal?
It may help it. It may become irrelevant because really what's going to matter is what really happened. What did she do throughout the course of this trial? Did she actually go into that jury room and have private conversations, not only with the foreperson, but potentially other jurors? And if she's opining about his guilt or his innocence to these jurors, it's totally improper if that happened. As you know, she's not supposed to be talking with jurors about anything, maybe aside from, hey, do you guys need some more bottled water? Or, hey, what time would you like to eat lunch? When should we order lunch? So she shouldn't be talking with them about anything.
What about her theory that Murdaugh had help cleaning up the crime scene? That was a new one.
Well, there are a lot of people who have speculated about that if Alex Murdaugh indeed committed these crimes, which he was found guilty of and he was accused of, and he's maintained his innocence, he says he didn't do it, that he would had to have had some form of help to clean up that mess, to get rid of firearms, to get rid of the clothing. He says he didn't do it, but there are people who think that possibly he did have help. And if he didn't do it, if he didn't carry out these crimes, there are some people who think it's the drug connection here, because keep in mind, he was using a lot of drugs, a lot of opioids, and he was involved in some trafficking as well. At least that's one of the allegations against him.
What a twisted tale, what a twisted update in this case. And
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.